Welcome back. Today we're tackling a really profound question, one you hear a lot. What happens to people who maybe their whole lives never even hear the name Jesus?
It's a huge question and deeply theological, but also intensely personal for many.
Absolutely. So we've gathered a range of sources, got questions, Desiring God, the Gospel Coalition, Patheos, Bible Hub Q&As. Quite a mix.
Yeah, a good cross-section of perspectives, mainly within broadly evangelical thought, but with different
Our
nuances.
goal today is to sort of unpack how they approach this. So, okay, let's dive in. Where do these sources usually start?
Well, what's interesting is that many kick off with this idea, and it can be a bit surprising, that everyone is somehow accountable to God.
Everyone, even if they've never opened a Bible or heard a sermon.
Exactly. The concept they use is general revelation, God revealing himself, his basic attributes, through what he's made.
Okay, general revelation. So like through nature, the stars, the complexity of life.
Precisely. Romans 1:20 is often cited. God's eternal power and divine nature are clearly seen, understood from creation itself. So the argument goes, people are without excuse.
Hmm, without excuse. And I think you mentioned conscience too.
Yes, that's key. Romans 2 talks about the law being written on human hearts, our consciences bearing witness. And Ecclesiastes 3.1, that famous line about God setting eternity in the human heart.
So there's this built-in awareness, however faint.
That's the idea, a sense of a higher power, of right and wrong. So accountability isn't necessarily about rejecting Jesus specifically, if you've never heard, but about rejecting the light, the revelation you did receive.
Okay, that makes sense. But then, don't most theological views also say humans naturally turn away from God? How does that fit?
Right, that's the tension. General revelation makes God knowable to a degree, but sin means we don't naturally seek him out or respond correctly to that revelation.
So we're responsible for rejecting even that basic knowledge.
That's the common thread, yes. Rejection of the light given. From there, though, the sources tend to branch out into, well, mainly two broad camps regarding salvation for those who haven't heard.
Okay, what are those camps?
First, you have exclusivism. This is pretty strongly represented in the sources like Got Questions and Desiring God, often associated with thinkers like John Piper.
And exclusivism says?
Essentially, that conscious, explicit faith in Jesus Christ is the only way to be saved. There's no salvation apart from hearing the gospel and believing in him personally.
So for this view, someone who never hears the name Jesus simply cannot be saved.
That's the direct implication. It leads to a very strong emphasis on the urgency of missions and evangelism. Getting the message out is paramount because it's seen as the sole pathway.
That's a clear stance. What's the other main perspective?
That's often termed inclusivism. Sources like the Gospel Coalition and Patheos discuss this, though not always endorsing it outright. It explores the possibility
The possibility
that God, in his mercy and sovereignty, might save some people who never consciously heard of Jesus, perhaps based on how they responded to that general revelation we talked about.
Okay, so how would that work? Are they saved apart from Jesus in this view?
No, and that's crucial. Nearly all these sources agree salvation is only through the work of Jesus Christ. The inclusivist question is more about how the benefits of Christ's death might be applied by God to someone who responded faithfully to the light they had, even without knowing his name.
Ah, I see. So Christ is still the source, but the application might be broader than just conscious confession.
That's the theological terrain being explored in inclusivism. It wrestles with God's character, his love and justice, alongside the biblical data.
How do these different views, exclusivism and inclusivism, really impact how we understand God, or even things like missionary work?
Well, the impact is significant. For exclusivists, as we said, the urgency for direct proclamation is incredibly high. Every unreached person represents a potential soul lost without hearing the explicit message.
And for inclusivists, less urgency.
Maybe not less urgency about God's love, but perhaps a different kind of engagement. Still valuing evangelism, but maybe also seeing God's work potentially happening through response to general revelation, or emphasizing acts of mercy and justice as reflecting God's kingdom, even before explicit conversion.
It really shapes the approach. And all sources seem to circle back to judgment being based on what was it?
Based on the knowledge and light received, Bible Hub discussions and commentaries often point to Romans 2.
Hmm.
Again, people are judged according to what they knew and how they responded to it, not judged for ignorance of things they couldn't possibly know.
Right. So wrapping this up, we've seen quite a spectrum, haven't we? From a clear exclusivist stance to a more questioning inclusivist perspective.
Definitely. But underneath the differences, there's that shared foundation.
Yeah.
Accountability based on revelation and salvation, ultimately only through Christ.
It's complex, dealing with God's justice, his mercy, our responsibility.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with a thought, perhaps. If God does reveal himself through creation and conscience, what responsibility does that place on everyone, wherever they are, to actually seek out truth, to respond to that innate sense?
That's a powerful question to ponder. It shifts the focus a bit, doesn't it? From just what happens to them to what is the universal human response to God's revelation.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. We hope this dive into the sources encourages you to keep exploring these deep questions of faith, justice, and how we understand God's work in the world.